The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
We're going to just transition right away, not take a break here. A lot of people don't know this about me, and it's something that I'm actually very proud of myself. And it sounds like a humble brag, and maybe it is. But I've sort of invested in real estate a lot, and I've kind of flipped a bunch of different condos in my day. And you know, a lot of you know, when you do these investments, it's how do you take something that you have and then turn it into something really beautiful. And one of the things I've really always focused on is interior design, but also outdoor and patio design. And quite frankly, I've done a great job, but I'm not an expert on it. And I always wanted to kind of pick the brain of an expert in that space. So today we lined up a great interview with Tracy Platt. And Tracy is Canadian Tire's resident style and design expert with an education in fashion. She has an extensive experience in both product design, trend forecasting, and oversees a creative and product vision for exclusive Canadian brands, particularly Canvas, which is a beautiful outdoor patio furniture brand. Hi, Tracy.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today? It's feeling like it's patio season soon.
You know, that's got to be, I guess, a frustrating part about, you know, what you do is that if the weather is sort of delayed when spring finally arrives, that you kind of just, you must be so anxious for it to get here already.
Well, yeah, this is true. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny. We talk about always predicting trends, but I can't predict the weather, and I can't predict the start of patio season. But certainly, you know, we think about patio, we think about Christmas 365 days of the year, which is kind of a funny pairing, but yeah, we're always excited at the start of patio season.
We need Canadian Tire maybe in like the housewares division to have a weather changing machine, you know, that can help expedite things. Can we get a bunch of those sold and all the neighbors and communities working together?
Well, you know what? I am lucky to work with a great team of product developers, so that's something that we can certainly start to try to focus our innovation on.
Oh, no doubt. I absolutely love design, as I was saying. I'm not sure if you heard my introduction. I love outdoor design. But, you know, I wanted to ask, you know, you specifically, how does one, you know, just your love of it, and then how do you turn that into a career?
Wow, well, that's a great question. I mean, certainly design is something that I've always been passionate about my whole life. You know, I tell the stories about when I was a child cutting up fabric around the house to make doll clothes, getting in a lot of trouble, you know, having the best style dollhouse probably on the street, turning that into an education in fashion design, as you mentioned, and a career in it. It's one of those things I always talk to people about. You know, never underestimate the power of great design and that you can go far in life with it. I mean, certainly, I think we tend to turn a lot of people away from creative roles as a profession, but there's certainly, you know, if you know how to put together business and insights, you can do a lot with it from a career perspective.
Well, and you've obviously done that very well, and especially now being at Canadian Tires as a resident style and design expert. When, you know, you talked about trend setting and stuff, and one of the things that's always sort of helped me, at least with design and ideas, is you know, Instagram and all these apps like Pinterest and stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that good for the average kind of design person to go and check out and try and get the ideas from?
It is. I mean, you know, certainly times have changed. There's so many great resources that we have at our fingertips now from a design and inspiration perspective. I mean, it used to be, I certainly remember waiting, you know, for the newest magazines to come out, the different flyers and different things that I could take a look at. And now we have so many great things at our disposal in terms of design. It can certainly be overwhelming for a lot of people, you know, and people often don't know where to start. So really one of the things that we try to do with our own assortments is just showing people how you can take all those different design trends that are happening out in the world and how do you pull them together and how do we really inspire our customers, because certainly there's so many great things that are happening. And trends are really changing so much faster by having everything at your fingertips. You know, we used to talk about design being, it is still very much a localized type of movement. I mean, certainly in Canada, we have our own sense of style and design, and people often don't realize that, but Canadians do have their own unique sense of style. There's different colors that we gravitate towards, different trends that we gravitate towards. Certainly from the Canvas brand perspective, we talk about being inspired by Canada, and that's where a lot of that influence comes from. It's understanding what, as a culture, Canadians, although we may go to Pinterest or Instagram to look for inspiration, there are certain things that we gravitate towards as a culture and as a people.
That's really interesting. I just sort of never thought about that as, you know, nation-based. Is it, you know, specific color? You know, are there specific colors within that sort of the canvas furniture and decor that Canadians would prefer?
There is. It's funny. It's one of those things when I start to talk to people about it, they don't actually realize it, but we do have our own certain sense of design. I mean, certainly people tend to think of course, our neighbors to the south, and of course we talk about European design, being the most revered style and design, and certainly influences from other parts of the world as well. But as Canadians, there's certain color palettes. When you think about our surroundings, we love our really beautiful, deep, rich reds are a color we gravitate towards. Sage green is a color that's really trending this season. When I explain to people what that color is, the comparison I always like to give is when you think about copper pennies and what a poor copper penny dropped into the water and what that oxidization, we see a lot of that patinaed green, certainly in our landscape, if you think about the architecture of Canada, some of the historical buildings, like it's that same color of green that it resonates with us. Green can be a little bit of a polarizing color, actually, even for indoors and outdoors. But even the types of patterns, the motifs that we like, definitely over the last few years, it's been cool to be Canadian. If you think about plaid, those different types of checks being really on trend, different wood materials, so certainly those different materials that resonate for us as consumers. But also, we just have our own slightly more sophisticated sense of style. We certainly are more in line with a European taste level, and people don't realize that.
I love to hear that, actually, and it's something I keep talking about. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm bragging, but a lot of people who don't know me would never really expect that the design is sort of really big in my heart, and that's why I'm actually very grateful to talk to you, because most people laugh at me, but I love these types of conversations, and I love learning from you. So, like, neat colors to kind of look up for me, especially I'm doing this cottage build. I love the canvas outdoor furniture. Definitely will get some for the cottage up there. And what I wanted to ask, though, about outdoor patio furniture specifically is I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, Tracy, but I feel like that it really only started to take off as a Canadian trend over maybe the last 8 to 10 years, meaning that, and I'll think back to my parents' day and age, where we had a big, beautiful backyard, but there was never really a focus on outdoor patio furniture. We were very blessed to grow up with a cottage as well. My parents double mortgaged their home and, struggled to do everything, but they didn't, they maybe had a Muskoka chair, but that was it. Nothing really elaborate. But in the last, and maybe even last 5 years, I've started to notice people really starting to think about what their outdoor space is going to look like and put a little bit of an investment in that too, with a gorgeous line, like canvas. Is that, am I right to assume that's just new?
I wouldn't say that patio furniture is new. I would say what is new is that consumers are thinking more about how do I make the most of the limited time that I have outdoors, because there are so many more options now. If you think about outdoor lighting, fire tables that allow you to stay outdoors a little bit longer. They're also thinking, though, more about creating a space that reflects their interior. And that's been one of the big design trends over the last 5+ years. It's really taking the indoors and mimicking that outdoors. So I think it's just more of the options that are available to us now as a customer, and that's really exciting to see that trickle down from the really high end. It used to be all about those high end spaces, again, that felt like they were only for a certain customer at a certain price point in a certain part of the world, maybe being able to enjoy the outdoors. It's a bit of a luxury to have that time outdoors and spend your time outside. And now we're seeing pieces that, like the sofa. So the outdoor sofa is something that's started to come up over the last few years, and it started to really catch on for the customer. It used to be all about the love seat. So if you think about, when you think back to the last 10 or so years, thinking about conversation sets were about a 2-seater love seat, maybe an armchair or two, and a coffee table. Now you have an outdoor sofa. You have a beautiful rug layered underneath. You have lighting that looks like it belongs indoors. We have dining pieces that also feel like they could be easily used inside your home or outside your home. And the furniture is looking less like the patio furniture of when we were children and more like the interior furniture that we see now. So I think that's maybe where it's starting to feel like it's really caught on. It's really more that it's evolved. It's evolved beyond, remember the basic patio furniture from when you were a kid. It was that plastic strap stuff, and it folded up, and it was really cheap. Like, everybody remembers that. Everybody has memories of sitting on patio furniture, and you stand up, and your leg has that mesh pattern in the back of your leg.
Absolutely hilarious.
It's not that anymore.
No.
Now it's, deep-seated cushions that have extra batting, pillow top on top. They feel like they're couch cushions. So it's really mimicking what's happening from the inside the home, and even the fabrics are so much softer, so people think about scratchy outdoor pillows. Now it's about having that really soft hand feel, having patterns that would feel at home inside your house, details like jute trim. So it's all those little things that you wouldn't expect to see outdoors.
And the canvas patio furniture, they have this really special like water repellent technology or something. Did you know how that works, Tracy?
Yeah, so that's our Tripel treatment on our fabrics. It is water stain and UV resistant. So, one of the biggest pain points is that although our summers are short, we have less than 100 days of summer, unfortunately, the sun can be really harsh on materials. So if you purchase something in that beautiful rich red color, we're seeing a lot of primary brights coming through, and that's certainly an influence coming over from the European market. Seeing those colors and knowing that they're not going to fade, or knowing that if you are going to spend so much of your time outdoors and you're going to make the most of your time, you're probably going to be having a glass of wine, you're going to be eating outdoors, you're going to have your kids around. So being able to stand up to the food and the toys and everything that's happening outdoors in terms of being able to resist stains, and then water repellent. So, we talk a lot about life in Canada at Canadian Tire and understanding those pain points of those quick sudden rainstorms, and you don't want to have to take all your cushions off. So being able to resist the elements as well in terms of the fabrics, but also the frames and the different materials that we're using. So we're really thinking a lot about quality in the furniture as well, and how do we take some of those customer pain points out when we're designing, because it's not just about those beautiful colors and the beautiful styling, but it's also, is that style going to hold up to the abuse that it's going to take when it's season after season, it's left outdoors and those sudden unexpected July snowstorms or all those bad weather fortune that we might face.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable predictable for sure, Tracy Platt. And you got me thinking about the red wine and my 3-year-old boy. I was thinking, can Canvas make some patio furniture for me, but inside? I want it inside because.
I hear you. I hear you. I've got 2 boys myself, so we spend a lot of our time outdoors. We talk about our outdoor spacing, our outdoor living room, and that's where the family hangs out. So, it's just, as I said, it's all about making it really comfortable, really reflecting your style, and showing that off. And, you're not the only one who's bragging about great design. Customers, they want to be able to create that great look at home themselves.
I wanted to share with you a little story, actually, and I don't even know if I've shared this on air, but my father used to, when I was a bit of a lazy teenager, would wake me up every morning, go up and at him, you got to go and get a job. And my first job ever, literally my first paying job, where they would take taxes off and all this kind of stuff, as opposed to maybe just lawn mowing, my neighbor's yard or something, was legitimately at Canadian Tire here in Toronto, more on the north end, at the Shepherd and Leslie location. My first, this, I'm going back almost 30 years, and I've, it's such a, it really is, listen, we're obviously doing a segment here and talking about Canadian Tire, and it's unbelievable, but it truly is a very legendary, cool Canadiana brand that has something for everybody. Does it feel very special? And I mean this sincerely, to be working with such a great name.
It does. So actually, fun fact about me, it's kind of funny. My parents met working in a Canadian Tire store. So it's kind of,
what aisle?
Kind of
what
funny.
Aisle? What section?
Well, they were actually both managers at a store in Regina. My mom's actually from the Philippines originally. So, coming to Canada and working for an iconic brand. I mean, if you want to talk about, I remember one of my first days at Canadian Tire, there was a session where employees were talking about their first experience at Canadian Tire, and it was interesting to see the number of people who had come from, they were not native to Canada, and so they're new citizens, and talking about their first experience as Canadians, like going to Canadian Tire to pick up their first set of skates, or going to Canadian Tire to get, what they needed for their first time camping. And there's something really exciting about being part of a brand like that and understanding how it really is tightly tied to our culture. I mean, it's one of those things I think sometimes people might take for granted, but sometimes being Canadian, there's a bit of an insider secret. All those little things that people don't know. It's cool to be Canadian, and we know those different things about, the different experience of what it's like to go camping in Muskoka, or what it's like, or not Muskoka, but Algonquin, or what it's like to go cottaging. I mean, I'm from out west, and so it's one of those things where it's just, it spans the entire country. But it's a humbling experience, certainly, to understand that, every product decision is going to be looked at, people from coast to coast, north and south. But yeah, fun fact again, like I said, that my parents met here, and so I'm rooted in it. It's kind of funny. My kids like to play Canadian Tire at home. I always joke about that as well. So you never know. We might have a third generation.
Well, but truthfully, it's one of those things I think with age you do really appreciate, and especially, me being a very, very proud Canadian who does, I'll move the show to New York once in a while and LA once in a while. But these strong roots and these strong corporations who really supported Canadians, year after year after year. They weren't, big conglomerates that came in here. They started here and have always had Canada on their name. And you're right, Tracy. There is a wicked, I don't know if Drake started it, but there is a wicked trend about being Canadian again. You know what I mean?
There is. It's funny because that's the reference I always use. I was talking about, think about all the really cool musicians that we have, certainly a lot of actors, design influences. I mean, it's kind of funny. We go through the list of when you think about big design names, celebrities, there's so many that are from Canada. A lot of times people don't realize that because, we are humble to a fault. Like when I talk about us having a sophisticated design sense, we don't brag about that, but we do have a sophisticated design sense here in Canada, and people don't realize that. But yeah, it's cool to be Canadian. We're on trend.
Well, thank you so much, Tracy. This has been a wonderful catch-up with Canadian Tire and the beautiful canvas furniture, outdoor furniture.
Thank
and decor.
you. Always happy to talk design and trend.
Tracy, real quick, what is your Twitter handle?
Wow. You know what? I'm not as good on Twitter. I have to say my Twitter handle is Lulu_James, but I'm definitely more on Instagram.
Okay.
So I'm often posting things behind the scenes. So it's Lulu James Creative, and I'm often posting things behind the scenes, certainly at our patio events. When I'm out traveling with the team, you'll see a little bit of what's happening from a design perspective. And I'm always on Instagram when we talk about design inspiration overload. There's so much great stuff out there.
Great. Well, I was going to ask you the Lulu. I had to ask you about the Lulu.
The Lulu. So my middle name is Louise. My mom has always called me Lulu.
I love it.
Yeah, and then James is another family. I'm all about the family. So family, two family names, Lulu James, and I'm a creative person. So I had to sneak that in there as well.
Oh, it's so wonderful. I just gave you a follow, and everyone else should too. Thank you so much, Tracy, and I hope to talk to you down the road, and maybe you can give me some style tips as I'm finishing off my cottage in the next few weeks.
I would love to, anytime.
Thank you so much. We really do appreciate that. Tracy Platt, everybody, a Canadian Tire's resident style and design expert.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.